Hi everybody, my name's Sonia Chaudhry. I'm Chief Executive of Action for ME, and I'm also a co-investigator on the DecodeME study. I'm delighted to be joined by my colleagues here this evening or afternoon or in the morning if you're in the States like Sadie is. My colleagues will introduce themselves in a moment, but I just wanted to welcome you all. It's very strange because we can't see you, but you can see us. It's an opportunity for you to ask questions about the DecodeME study. As many of you will know, on our website, you should be able to see the website address on the screen. There is a frequently asked questions section, so some of the answers will already be on there, and what we will do after today's live stream is if there are any specific questions that we feel would be helpful to add to the website, we will do so afterwards. We've had quite a lot of questions coming in over the last week or two, which is fantastic, but you can ask questions through the chat. My colleagues Sam and James are there to be able to retrieve questions. This is our second webinar, and last time we weren't able to get through all of the questions, but do send them through and we will make sure that through social media, etc., we respond to those over the next week or two. As some of you will know, there have been some changes in the partnership team. We did put some information up on the website, but what I can say is that the partnership team that we've got currently is 100% united in taking the study forward and delivering it to the best of our ability. And we're hugely excited about sort of being able to take this forward. We're keen to take questions about what we're doing next and how we're going to progress. And we are going to be launching recruitment in May, as you may have seen through our recent communications. There are lots and lots of things that we've got to do, and we'd be delighted to take your questions about that. We've also had quite a lot of questions about the COVID vaccine and other things. We're not able to answer questions tonight about anything that's not related to the study, but you can certainly go to charity websites, Action for ME, ME Association, and some of the others. We've all got information up there that you'll be able to access. You may also have received an email this morning announcing our relationship with SolveME. So I'm really delighted that Sadie's been able to join us this evening. We'll be licensing some of the Solve software and inputting into their registry, and Sadie will be able to tell you a little bit more about that during the course of this event. So I'm just going to ask my colleagues to introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Andy, then Chris, then Sadie.
Hi everyone, I'm Andy Devereux-Cook. I'm a patient. I'm also a co-investigator and part of the management team. Really, it's a delight that we're here to answer your questions, and to welcome Sadie as a representative of Solve into the DecodeME team to help enhance what we're going to offer with this project.
Hello, I'm Chris Ponting. I'm a human geneticist, a researcher at the University of Edinburgh, and I'm an investigator on the DecodeME study. So I see the whole study as an opportunity to reveal the genes that alter ME risk. So in other words, how we're going to find out what causes for some people to become ill with ME and others not. I'm delighted to be working with lovely people to find that out.
Hi everyone, I'm Sadie Whitaker and I'm the Chief Scientific Officer at SolveME, and I'm thrilled to be part of this project. Some of you may know that we launched a registry and biobank in May of this year, really with the vision being how can we collaborate with individuals around the world to create the largest possible data set to be able to understand causes of ME and identify treatments. So this is really in line with that vision, and we're thrilled to be here to answer questions today.
Thanks everyone. So I'm going to kick us off with a couple of questions that we've had in advance of the call this evening. First one's going to Andy. Are you involving people with ME in the recruitment and analysis of the results?
Well, what really delights me, I think I used that word already, about this study is the fact that patients are involved in pretty much every single stage. we're basically having the input of the valuable lived experience that they bring. So yes, are they involved in the recruitment and analysis? Very much so. We have individual members represented on each of those particular project teams, as well as obviously the overall input from the PPI, the Patient and Public Involvement Steering Group, which brings a wider input from the community into the study as well.
Great, thank you. And Chris, this is a question for you. What sort of information can you glean from a saliva test?
Great, so we'll be reading out the DNA that's in the saliva. And DNA is a chain of 3 billion chemical letters drawn from a 4-letter alphabet. And so we'll read out the DNA in multiple different places, almost 1 million places, and find the DNA letters that are more commonly in people with ME than they are in the general population. And so these are letters that would pinpoint the genes that matter in ME, those that change the risk of people getting ME from, say, smaller to larger. And knowing what these genes are gives a much better chance that subsequent research will work out more precisely what's going wrong and what kinds of treatments or drugs that are needed.
Right, thank you. And I guess this is a real opportunity again, just to remind people how they can participate in terms of what do they actually need to do and how will they get their spit to us.
So everyone who passes the criteria for the study will be sent one of these spit kits in the regular post. They'll provide their saliva sample. It'll be sent on for processing, and after that, then the DNA will be read out. And to be absolutely clear, the data is going to be held really securely, and so we'll pay great attention to that, and then use all of the data in our analyses to find out which are these letters that predict whether someone in a whole bunch of people will have ME or not.
Great, thanks. And of course, there's a step before that, isn't there? Because actually we need people to sign up. So maybe Sadie, you can say a little bit about what's involved in that and whether Solve's been involved in this kind of work before.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned that we launched our registry back in May, but kind of leading up to that point was the creation of the digital infrastructure. So the place where you go online to enter the data, and the development of the symptom tracking app. And we did both of those things with the community. So we didn't want to just create something and hope it was going to meet everybody's needs. Instead, we wanted to work with researchers, with clinicians, with patients, with caregivers, with individuals within the community to help us co-create the design and the data capture that was going to be involved in the registry. So we did that. The process that an individual goes through is you go onto a desktop portal on your computer and you enter some demographic information. So things like your age, your gender, things like where in the country you live. You fill out some baseline surveys, health surveys, and then you're able to start tracking with the symptom tracking app so that you can monitor your symptoms on an ongoing basis. So that's kind of the model for the registry. How things are going to work with the DecodeME study is that individuals will come into the system and fill out some information that's specific to the study. That's been designed with the PPI and Chris and the members of this organization. And then, you know, once you've enrolled for DecodeME, there will be an option to participate in the broader registry. So to my mind, one of the kind of lovely things about this relationship is that your data is going to be incredibly helpful for DecodeME, but also has the potential to have this much bigger impact as part of a global registry.
Great, thank you. And I've got a question now for Chris from Sophie. She'd like to know when genetic testing will start.
Great. So we'll be asking people for their saliva sample from May next year. It'll take some time for these kits to be sent out and for those to be returned and then processed, and then for the DNA to be read out. We anticipate that within 6 months of launch, we will have enough samples, or at least we hope that participation will be high enough that we have enough samples to do the genetic analysis in its first form by the end of the year. But of course, that absolutely depends on recruitment, how many people sign up, how many people return their kits, which, by the way, are quite expensive. So we'd love it if people could return them if they request them. And the sooner that we get those kits filled and samples received and DNA analyzed, the sooner it is that we can do the computational work that will pinpoint these letters that matter so much for determining whether someone is more or less likely to have ME.
Right, thank you. And of course, we are encouraging people to sign up for updates through our website. So you can go to the website if you haven't already and sign up for updates, and you will be the first people to find out how you can participate, and we'll give you all the information that you need to go to the Solve app to be able to take part. If you are unable to use a computer screen and you're really unable to input your data online, we are thinking through how we can support people to do that. We don't want to exclude anybody, so we are working very hard to make sure we can be as inclusive as possible. So the next question I've got, and I think I'll start with Andy, but Chris, you may want to come in on this as well. I became ill with ME 30 years ago and was disbelieved by GPs, so I've never had a formal diagnosis. Will this matter, and will I still be able to participate?
Well, first of all, obviously, I'm very sorry that you've gone through that experience, because sadly that's a common story, the disbelief part particularly. I'm sure many of us patients have had that same experience. We do have to set certain rules, if you like, for the study for people to participate. So we are asking for all participants to confirm that they have had a diagnosis of ME, CFS, ME/CFS, one of the many names that are out there for the condition. So we are asking for potential participants to confirm that they have had a diagnosis of that in order to be able to progress into the actual study itself. Obviously, that's not ideal from a patient point of view because of the issues that you raise. But like I say, all research studies have to set inclusion rules, inclusion, exclusion, and this is one that we will be applying.
And if I just may carry on with that, one of the outcomes of this study, I think we all hope for, is that there is a greater awareness of the symptomology, what people experience in their lives of living with ME. And Sadie may want to come in a minute, but there have been occasions where by accumulating all of the data about your symptoms and then going to your health professional and saying these are those, and other people may have had diagnoses from similar symptoms, that has triggered GPs and others to have a more favorable impression in terms of diagnosis for that individual. I'm not a clinician, I don't have expertise in this area, but I have heard such stories. And one of the outcomes, as I said, I hope, is that there is a greater societal change, including in healthcare, as to what people with ME experience.
Thank you, Chris. And Sadie, I'm going to come to you in a moment. I will just say as well that Action for ME can provide advocacy support to help people access healthcare. So if you are having issues with a diagnosis and you would like support, then that's certainly something that we can offer. One of the brilliant things, one of the many brilliant things about the Solve relationship is that it opens doors to other research and being involved in other research studies, as Sadie said, and also symptom trackers. Do you want to say a little bit more about that, Sadie?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, I mean, just to answer Chris's question about the being able to package up the information and giving it to your doctor or your healthcare team, is something that was really important to us in the design of the registry. And we've actually been able to do that for a few individuals currently in the registry, where we take all of their data that they've entered at baseline and tracked with the symptom tracking app, and we're able to package it up. And it just really provides something that's a little more seen as a little more objective, and is well received by doctors and healthcare teams. So that's definitely something that, Chris, to your point, can help with diagnosis. Sonia, in terms of the symptom tracking app, so that kind of how it works is you can enter symptoms that you're experiencing, and you can track them on a frequent basis. So the default is every 3 days, but you can change it to whatever frequency you want. And you can overlay that with what's happening in your life. So you can track whether you've had a stressful day or whether you've taken too much exercise. And then you can graph all of that together. So there's a functionality where you can look at how your symptoms change over time, but you can also monitor what things have happened in your life that may be affecting your symptoms. And you can look at post-exertional malaise, maybe what led up to it, how long it lasted. You know, you can start to look at patterns. And the feedback that we've had from the community is that it's just a really compelling way for them to be able to monitor what's going on with their health and maybe make adjustments. So I'm excited for the community to be able to play around with it. It's very well, people are really enjoying using it.
Great, thank you, Sadie. And I think there's also something to say around the inclusion and exclusion that Andy mentioned earlier on. We know that there will be some people that have a diagnosis with ME, have symptoms of ME and have ME, but may not actually be sent a spit kit through this study. That doesn't mean that people don't have ME, but there are specific research criteria that we need to apply to this study, and so we will have to be a bit selective, and that's a really important part of what we'll be doing as a team. But there is still an opportunity for you to be involved in lots of research. So we're really encouraging everybody, even if you haven't had a diagnosis, you can still go to the app when it's launched. For us, with the DecodeME study, you can fill in our questionnaires, you can access the symptom tracker, and your data, if you consent, will still be hugely invaluable. So everybody can participate in this, even if you're not selected specifically to receive a spit kit. So I've got a slightly change of tack now with the next question. It's a brilliant question, actually, and we've been asked to ask everybody, how did you get involved in this study and in ME research more broadly? So I'm going to start with Andy.
Well, the most obvious route, I'm a patient, so it's all of this is very personal to me. Obviously, while I'm largely housebound, even more so obviously due to COVID, but previously, you know, while I was able to get out occasionally, most of my time was housebound. Obviously, I have a better level of functioning than some of the many housebound patients out there. So I was able to get involved in various little projects, and along with a small team of other like-minded patients, I'm a co-founder of the Science for ME Forum, where we look to, as the name suggests, you know, our focus is on the science of ME. And from there, I basically started reaching out to researchers, and that basically led me to where I am today, for good or bad. So yeah, it's basically just getting involved. So what I'd ask other patients out there, we can all get involved in one form or another. So those with better functioning, you know, can get involved more deeply, but even just on social media, you know, shares and likes can be so valuable. So please do your bit.
Thanks, Andy. Chris?
So I knew this guy at university called Simon McGrath, and I knew him when he was well, and he didn't stay well. He got ill, very badly ill, with ME. I thought I could do nothing. I was a scientist, sure, but I wasn't really able to help him. After all, I'm not a clinician. How can I help someone like him and so many others across the world? Well, eventually I found myself doing human genetics, and the technology has changed so dramatically in the last 10 years, 15 years, that identifying and pinpointing the genetic factors that tip the balance towards whether someone gets ME or not. That technology has been applied to so many different diseases, and it just appeared to me quite obvious that it should be applied here to ME. And around about that time, or just before, I joined Stephen Holgate's CMRC, and eventually together we kind of kept on knocking on the door all the funders and answering all their questions and sending them documents and arguing the case for genetic study of ME. And finally, seems like a long time ago, but it was only last year, they said to us, well, put it in an application. And by that time, we have been working alongside everyone here. We had all of the expertise to hand to do that study. So this is where we are now. And I'm all in on this project. I want it to work. I want it to work fast, for all the reasons that everyone out there knows about. And everyone I talk to about this project, who are in this project, are of the same mind. And so its importance cannot be understated, and we know that.
Thank you, Chris. Sadie?
So for those of you who don't know, I come from pharma. So I worked in clinical development in pharma, predominantly in the cancer setting. And I saw over the last 10 or 15 years how dramatic the change in our understanding of cancer has been as a result of big data. So, you know, breast cancer used to be a single disease, and now people know that it's 10 or 15 different diseases. And that's really because of the amount of information that there was available to be able to look at the different types and identify where different treatments could work. So, you know, coming to this organization and really being horrified at how little attention was being paid to this disease, and seeing some of the heterogeneity, and, you know, seeing that some people maybe respond to a treatment, but when you test it in a clinical study, it doesn't play out. That to me just speaks to heterogeneity. You saw that in cancer in the early days. So in the setting up the registry, my goal was really to just be able to have enough information to be able to see what was going on and be able to understand why some people respond to a certain therapy, or why some people recover slightly, or why some people don't. And you just need information. So it's really exciting to see it come to life. We have 2,000 people in the registry as of this week, and we have more than 1 million data points. So it's going to become such a powerful piece of information that when you start to work with researchers like Chris to then take all of that information and look at the genetics, it's just going to be incredibly powerful, and I think will unlock a lot of the mysteries that have surrounded this disease for too long.
Thank you. And from my perspective, I became involved. I started as Chief Exec at Action for ME just over 8 years ago. I think it was my second week when I had a phone call from Sir Stephen Holgate saying, we're setting up this research collaborative. Your predecessor was helping me. You're in now. Who are we inviting? I'd never been involved in science before, and was highly intimidated by this whole new academic world that I was dipping my toe into. But over the last 7-8 years, it's been fantastic to work with people like Stephen and Chris, and with the patient advisory group that's been set up for the research collaborative to actually drive this the research agenda forward. I think, you know, it's appalling that people with ME have been left without research. The funding hasn't been there. And we have had lots of meetings and discussions behind closed doors, advocating for the opportunity to have a study like DecodeME. So to get to the point where we were invited to develop a partnership and then be asked by Stephen and Chris to be involved in the partnership is a great opportunity. Some of you will also know I have a son who's now turned 18 this year, who was diagnosed with ME a year after I joined the charity. So whilst I was hugely passionate before about ME research and supporting people with ME and creating change for the future, this has become my life. And so I cannot tell you how excited I am that we're at the point now of being able to start talking about recruiting people into this study. That kind of segues on really to a number of questions that we've had through Facebook for Sadie around how and when people will be able to access the app.
So you might have noticed that currently within the registry, which is the gateway to the app, enrollment has been limited to the US. And that's partly because, you know, we wanted to work collectively with this team in the UK to figure out how the DecodeME study was going to work and how our partnership was going to work. I think the plan is to open the registry globally in the first part of 2021. So probably within the first quarter, and access to the app will be available then. But that's still a little bit in discussion with this team as to, you know, how we'll coordinate with enrollment for DecodeME, because obviously this study is the priority and we want to make sure that individuals are signing up for this study and we can get to that 20,000 number as soon as possible.
Great, thank you. And what we'll be doing in May is launching the recruitment. So as I mentioned earlier on, if you've signed up for updates, you will get information straight away. We're really hoping that as many people go through the app process and enter their details so that we can get spit kits out and hopefully start the analysis sooner. So I'm going to start with Chris for this question, but again, Sadie, you might want to come in on this. Will the app keep my personal data safe, and will Brexit affect that too?
So, great question, obviously. The app will be under the jurisdiction of the United Kingdom. It will be used under GDPR, so we're all okay with respect to regulations. The data transfer into the University of Edinburgh is under those regulations, and we will be compliant to those regulations inside the University of Edinburgh. So we've worked all of this out. It will be safe. We have data protection protocols that we work to, which we've been writing up in the last few days, actually. And so we take this issue incredibly seriously. And I know that Sadie does too, because we've already had discussions about exactly this point with respect to the registry and the app.
Yeah, exactly. So the registry and the app, they're, to your point, they're GDPR compliant. Also, obviously, we have and Chris for this study will have IRB approval. So, you know, I don't know if you call it ethics committee, I think, but it's the group of people who review the research and determine whether or not all of this stuff is secure and aligned with the privacy laws and regulations. So we take it incredibly seriously. And although we're a US organization, we have legal counsel in the UK who we have worked with in the development of the platform to make sure that all of the local privacy laws are met with how we secure the data.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, just to jump in on a connected point, in case there's anybody out there thinking, well, I want to take part in DecodeME, but I'm not so convinced on the registry, and we hope that you will be in time. It is possible to go through the registration process for DecodeME and not take advantage of the further registry app. So you can just simply register for DecodeME, and that can be your lot if that's all that you want to do. Obviously, one of the reasons why we're teaming up with Sadie is that we believe in what they offer via the registry and the connected app. So I was talking about patients getting involved in the registry as a further step to being involved just enhances the impact that you can have. And while it may not be immediately apparent to you, the build-up of data is extremely valuable. So for those people who were perhaps thinking that's a bit much for me, well, that's fine. You can just apply for the study and leave it there. But for people who are thinking that, you know, if that's something that's of interest, we'd very much encourage you to take that additional step, sign up to the registry and join the kind of global effort that way.
That's great, thank you. It's a really important point, Andy. And I'm just going to ask a question. It's something that I've been asked quite a bit, Chris. Is this study blinded? So maybe you could just say what a blinding of a study means, and then maybe respond to that question about DecodeME.
So there are two aspects to this. One is when the people do the analysis, the computation analysis, will they know who you are, the participants, your names, your addresses, whatever? The answer is no, you won't. That is not information that will be passed to the analyst. We're not particularly interested at that point in that information. We're just interested in whether you pass the criteria as being someone with ME. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is we're not blinded to the fact that you will have a diagnosis of ME and pass the criteria, because that is exactly the information we need to know to compare with members of the general population. And we're drawing the data for those people, not in this study, but from a previously funded study of 500,000 people in the UK. So not spending any money whatsoever on that, but we are spending our money on people with ME only. So in that respect, we're not blinded to people with ME as being the cases. But the genetic analysis is so objective and so analytical. The result is what it is. We are not blinded in terms of subjectivity and previous preconceptions as to what the causes are with ME. We will be looking at it all because it all can be coded into our genome. And so in that one very important respect, it doesn't matter that we're not blinded to ME status because we're looking at everything.
Great, thank you, Chris. So I'm aware that Sadie's got to go in just under 10 minutes. So if you have any more questions for Sadie, do get them to come through first. We're still getting questions from people saying, how do we get the app? So could you just remind us, Sadie, of what's going to actually happen?
Yeah, so as Andy mentioned, you know, you'll, as an individual for DecodeME, you'll kind of be able to come in and enter some information and either qualify for the study based on the information you enter or not. And at the end of that process, you'll be given the opportunity to join the registry. And the registry is kind of the thing that we have 2,000 individuals in already, where you can enter more information and track your symptoms over time using the app. So that's really the process involved. The app is connected to participation in the registry, And that's really to do with how the consent process works. You consent through the registry process, and then that allows you access to the app.
Okay, thank you. And we will be in contact with everybody who signed up for updates to let you know the first day that we're opening, and we will provide links so that you can go immediately to it to participate. We'll also have information on social media and on our website. But if you want to be amongst the first people to be able to sign up and to take part, then do sign up for updates. So Sadie, this is a connected question for you. Can we choose what research studies our data is used for?
So the process of how individuals will use the data is that we'll get a request from a researcher. So we'll get a proposal and an application from a researcher for access to the anonymized data. So they won't have any information about the individuals. It will be blinded data. And that proposal will be reviewed by a group of individuals, including individuals with ME, but also clinicians and researchers who will evaluate whether or not that research is valid and they believe is going to result in, you know, a forward advancement of the science. So if that proposal is approved, then the individual will get access to either the data or the data and the biospecimens that we have in the biobank, depending on what they're looking for. And then the research will go from there. So in that regard, as an individual in the registry, you don't get to say kind of whether or not your particular data can be part of that data set. However, we do have a part of the registry that is going to feature different research studies. So the research opportunities will be posted within the registry, and you can choose in that regard, yes, I want to be part of this study. And if you click that, then your information can be part of that study, or you may be asked to provide additional information that might be specific to a study. So for example, if someone wants to look at post-exertional malaise, they might ask you to track something really closely for a period of time. And by clicking on that, yes, I want to be part of that study, you would maybe do a few different pieces of data tracking. So hopefully that answers the question.
I know it does. And probably a last question for you before you go, Sadie. Can researchers from all over the world apply for the data, or is it limited to certain countries?
Yeah, researchers all over the world can apply. And as I mentioned before, currently the registry is only open to US participants, but we have plans to open it globally in the beginning part of next year.
Fantastic. Sadie, thank you so much for joining us. I'm not kicking you out. You're welcome to stay for but just in case you have to leave whilst we're mid-question, because I know you've got something else to go to. We'll probably be doing another webinar, I'm sure, and we'll be making sure that there's plenty of information up on the website. So if people have questions around Solve and the app, etc., then please do send them through to us, and when we get a chance, we will update the FAQ on the website. So I've got a couple of questions, not surprisingly, about COVID. So question around whether COVID has affected this study in any way, and particularly with more people talking about long COVID, will any attention or funding be taken away from DecodeME? So Chris, I might go to you first, but Andy, I think if you want to come in afterwards.
So we were very grateful to the funders for them granting us funding Easter time. They're not going to take the money away. That's dedicated to the ME study over the next up to 4 years from the beginning of September. So that's secure. There are other funding calls that are looking at long COVID. Up to £20 million has been set aside for studies on long COVID. And I understand entirely why some people are saying, why is it that up to that amount of money had not been previously dedicated to ME? I understand that. Has COVID affected this study? Only in small ways. It's delayed it by a month or so. We've rejigged things so that we're using a mail-out company, mailing out the spit kits, rather than being reliant on us being required to go into a particular institute and mail them out from there. so we're trying to make sure it's COVID robust. Our project is COVID robust. So we think we can run this project from within the pandemic if it, as it probably will, rumble on for quite a while yet.
Thank you. Anything you'd like to add, Andy?
Not much. I mean, one aspect of the question that Chris didn't particularly touch on was whether any attention would be taken away from DecodeME. Within the community, I don't think so, because obviously, you know, we will continue to reach out to you all via these webinars, via various social media aspects, via our updates by email and such like. And obviously, we will be looking to extend that reach even further once we open up recruitment, because us getting to the 20,000 participants is very important in order to ensure that the analysis is as valid as it can be. So in that way, I don't think any attention has been taken away from it. And I mean, from my point of view, no, it's not taken away my attention from it. And you know, I'm equally reassured that all the other members of the team, you know, have their full amount of attention on the study and are determined to progress it, even though we are having to change things and adapt to the current situation.
Great, thank you. And I think it's also worth just mentioning that when we were successful with this funding, the funders, the Medical Research Council and the National Institute for Health Research, both said research funding for ME. So we would hope this isn't an either or. It's not long COVID or ME. Both are important. Both groups, both communities need research. They need a focus, they need support, and we need to keep advocating for that. And I can completely say that all three of us and the rest of the partnership team will be working with funders to say what's the next step. The Research Collaborative will also be doing the same. And we also have funding that's gone into the Priority Setting Partnership, which will help look at what the research priorities should be for clinical research going forwards. So we're all completely behind making sure that this is a starting point, not the end point. Chris, question for you. Will the data be reused after the DecodeME study? And if so, how?
Absolutely. The data will be made available to bona fide researchers worldwide in academic settings from companies, etc. Well, why would we do this? Well, because it catalyzes advances, progress. And we're not going to limit others to perform groundbreaking research. We're going to make sure that we can help them as much as we can. So with your informed consent, the data will be made available in a completely anonymized manner, so that future research can be done to the best of many people's abilities. And I just wanted to say, because my answer is quite similar to Sadie's, that one of the main reasons we have today this webinar talking to you is to try and make it clear that Solve is putting forward their vision, which is across the globe, really. And we absolutely agree with it. And so with the instantiation of it in the United Kingdom and working with them, they will harbor a whole bunch of data from people across the world. And we will collect a lot of data, but we will be harmonizing the data and what questions are going to be used to allow studies to be done across the whole world. And there's no element of competition, and there is an element of working together in harmony. And that's really why I thought it, and was so grateful for Sadie joining us today to explain that.
And Solve have also developed a partnership with Emerge in Australia. So there's active use of the app there, and as well as the rolling out more broadly. And we've been in discussion with researchers in the States and elsewhere to look at how we can work together. I think it's such an important point. Collaboration is fundamental. Collaboration between researchers and the patient community, but also with researchers internationally. And that's something that we're all very much committed to. Unsurprisingly, Chris, there's more genetics questions for you. Do you have a provisional idea of which genes may be involved?
I don't, and that's the point, in that I'm not prejudiced as to what the outcome is going to be. With a student and Simon McGrath, we recently reviewed the genetics evidence for factors changing risk for ME. And we drew a blank, actually. There was no firm evidence for any gene, actually. And that publication is available to read for anyone to read. So, but I'm pleased that we are unprejudiced in our approach, because that means that we will be looking at all of the parts of the genome that no one has ever looked at before. And that will therefore give us the chance of finding out new biology that perhaps others in research are beginning to work on already, and they will be drawn in then into ME research, and they will be the ones to make the fundamental findings that will be so important to all of you.
Fantastic. And I think it's also worth adding that this is the largest, the biggest study of this nature, 20,000 people. So we need to sign up as many people as possible. So you're going to hear me keep plugging away saying, please sign up for updates. We have around 25,000 people in the UK over the age of 16 who have already signed up to say they would be interested in taking part. But we know we're going to need a lot more, because not everybody will meet the very specific criteria for this study, and not everybody will be in a position to return their spit kits, however much Chris pleads for people to return them. So we do need to get as many people signed up as possible. So probably a last genetics question for Chris, so that we can take some other ones. Are there any plans to cross-reference the DNA findings with other disciplines that have already made advances in their understandings of DNA and disease presentation?
That's such a great question. The answer is yes. That's exactly what we're going to do. So each type of disease will have a different genetic signature. And that signature will go up and down as you walk across the genome. And so we can compare these signatures across different diseases. So from ME to, I don't know, multiple sclerosis or other autoimmune diseases or risk of cancer, absolutely anything. And that will be able to tell us whether there's any genetic concordance agreement between the reasons why some people have ME and other types of disease, or not. So it could be that there is another disease which is thought of as being quite similar, but actually we can say that there's no evidence for that. And sometimes finding the lack of evidence is as important for honing your future research as finding the evidence for something.
Thank you. And one for you, Andy. Is there any way we can help the study finish quicker by volunteering?
Yeah, there are a few ways. At the moment, we're exploring the idea of people who would work to actively boost our reach on social media, tentatively. We're calling them social media champions. One aspect that obviously we're aware of is that the more severely affected of us patients may be keen to be involved, may go through the recruitment process, selection process, and be accepted as a participant and be sent a spit kit. but obviously may struggle to return that. Now, the finer details are yet to be worked out, but what we're keen to do is to be able to connect with local ME groups who may be able to offer their help to participants to get those kits sent back. Obviously, Chris is keen to get them back because of the cost, but obviously we would like to enable as many participants, and particularly obviously the severe patients who tend to be even more excluded than those of us less affected. So there's that potential route that people can help out. And to go back to an earlier point, sharing and liking social media things can't really be stressed enough. Although it seems, you know, something that you might do in passing and with little impact, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram all have algorithms that constantly monitor how much interaction there is with posts, and on using that those figures, that it will then distribute the reach of those posts further and further. So just by liking and interacting, shares, or even, you know, an occasional positive comment underneath them is always appreciated by our social media team. You boost the rankings of those posts up in the algorithm. So even things that might seem small can make a big difference.
Right. And we are working with a marketing agency, digital marketing agency called Itineris. They've helped us set up the website, and we're going to be working with them. Patient Public Involvement Group will be working with them to help us target as many people as possible and get the study and the branding in front of them. We're also looking at something called a participant gets participant scheme. So if you have taken part, that you actually recommend us to somebody else and encourage them to take part. And also thinking about how we can ask family and friends as champions to make people they know with ME aware of the study. We will be looking at things like posters and that kind of thing. But I think the question earlier around how has COVID affected this study has meant that we are now thinking more broadly about how we can recruit people, because not so many people are in libraries and doctor surgeries and those kinds of things. We did also set up a consultation, I think possibly even a year ago now. We had over 1,000 responses, people giving ideas about what we could do to recruit people. So we are working through that at the moment to help inform our recruitment strategy. I think it might be helpful to, Chris, maybe you could just explain to people. Sadie talked about how you can sign up and you fill the questionnaire in and those kinds of things. If you match our specific study criteria, what will actually happen next?
So if someone matches the criteria, we'll let you know by email that you do, and you will be sent a saliva sample kit. It'll come to you quite quickly. We'll ask you to donate a very small amount of saliva. There'll be an instruction leaflet to go with it. And then you can pop that back in its box, back in the post, and that's it, you're done. Once you've completed the questionnaire, you're a member of the ME, DecodeME study, you get your box, you provide your sample, and you're done.
Great, thank you, Chris. So one of the questions that's come in is around how confident we are that we'll hit the recruitment target. I'm going to say we're confident because that's part of the work that I'm involved in, and we're confident that because of the number of people that have signed up for updates and indicated that they would like to take part. But as we said earlier on, we still need lots more people to sign up. And the sooner people sign up, the sooner we can let you know when the study opens, and the sooner we can get the spit kits out, we can get the saliva back, and the analysis can start. So please do sign up if you haven't already. Question, I'm going to start with you first, Andy, and then to Chris. How has the study been received by people with ME? And then to Chris, other researchers.
I'm not sure the right positive word to use, to be honest. Obviously, frankly, it's game-changing. So the fact that the funders recognise the need for this study, and without getting into that this kind of study should have been done many, many years ago. The fact that they recognise that this study was necessary and that it needed to be funded and that they did fund it is all part of the game-changing aspect that it has. And I think those of us in the patient community who are aware, particularly of the background and what has gone on previously, recognise what a big deal that this is, and that it stands a chance, a very good chance of providing a huge wealth of information that can take this field a giant step forward, where previously, because of size of study typically, where the size of this study is just on such a larger scale than previous ones. No matter how good the science previously was, it was hard to extrapolate the results onto the wider population. Here with 20,000 participants, we get a far better look at what the population actually consists of.
Thank you. Chris?
So there are trends even in science, and if I was working in multiple sclerosis or aspects of cancer, my fellow researchers would go, okay, I understand. Until we had the award from the MRC and NIHR, I'm not sure that there was a great understanding that this was something worth researching. Now, with this award, it is clear to everyone, researchers and others alike, this is definitely worth researching. And secondly, I'd like to say that the funders know this. They've known for a long while, but a major reason why this was funded, beyond the science, was the involvement of people with ME. And without that involvement, it wouldn't have been funded. And so it is exactly the right time with the right people to do the right thing. And it is telling people around me in scientific circles, telling them that this is an interesting, scientifically interesting and important area to study.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chris. And one final question, because our time is almost up. What if more than 20,000 apply and are eligible? How will you choose who participates, or will you test more than 20,000, Chris?
The people who provide their samples earliest will be analysed the first. If we are able to eke out our money and go beyond 20,000, of course we will. It is a numbers game, and we will optimise that as best we can. And if we have more than 20,000, of course, we will look out for other funds to enable all of those extra people to be studied.
Fantastic, thank you. So there really is an incentive for you to sign up early and get to the front of the queue there. So I just want to thank Chris and Andy and obviously Sadie, who's now left us, for your time this evening, and for all of you watching. You can go to the website. The website address is on screen if you want to find out more information. We will update the frequently asked questions on occasions. We're not able to answer every single specific question as it comes in. I hope you understand that we are working hard getting the ethical approval in place and everything in place so that we can open in May as planned and not experience any more delays. So please bear with us and do understand if we're not able to answer everything, but we do need you. This is a study that is about people with ME, working with people with ME to make sure that we kickstart research in a way that's needed. It may be later than many of us will have wanted, but it is happening now, and it can only happen if you support it and take part. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you.